Okay. So let me share the verse. All right. So reading from first canto, 10th chapter. First canto, 10th chapter and verse number 28. नूना व्रता स्नानहुता दिनेश्वरः समचितो हि अस्य गृहतपानिभिः पिबन्ति या सखी अदारमृतं मुहुरु व्रजस्त्रियसामु मुहुर्यद् आशाय. Synonyms: Nunam, certain in the previous birth; Vrat, vow; Snan, bath; Utta, sacrifice in the fire; Adina, by all these; Ishvara, the personality of Godhead; Samarchitta, perfectly worshipped; He, certainly; Asya, his; Vrita, Panibhi, by the married wives; Pibanti, relishes; Ya, those who; Sakhi, O friend; Adhar, Amritam, the nectar from his lips; Muhu, again and again; Vraj, Striya, the damsels of Rajbhumi; Sammu, Muhu, often fainted; Yat Asha Ya, expecting to be favored in that way. Translation: O friends, just think of his wives, whose hands he has accepted, how they must have undergone vows, baths, fire, sacrifices, and perfect worship of the Lord of the universe to constantly relish now the nectar from his lips by kissing. The damsels of Rajbhumi would often faint just by expecting such favors. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Religious rites prescribed in the scriptures are meant to purify the mundane qualities of the conditioned souls to enable them to be gradually promoted to the stage of rendering transcendental service on the Supreme Lord. Attainment of this stage of pure spiritual life is the highest perfection, and this stage is called Swarup, or the factual identity of the living being. Liberation means renovation of this stage of Swarup. In that perfect stage of Swarup, the living being is established in the 5 phases of living service, one of which is the stage of Madhurya Ras, or the humor of conjugal love. The Lord is always perfect in himself, and thus he has no hankering for himself. He, however, becomes a master, a friend, a son, or a husband to fulfill the intense love of the devotee concerned. Herein, 2 classes of devotees of the Lord are mentioned in the state of conjugal love. One is Swakiya and other is Parakiya. Both of them are in conjugal love with the personality of Godhead Krishna. The queens at Dwarka were Swakiya, or duly married wives, but the damsels of Raj were young friends of the Lord while he was unmarried. The Lord stayed at Vrindavan till the age of 16, and his friendly relations with the neighboring girls were in terms of Parakiya. These girls, as well as the queens, underwent severe penances by taking vows, bathing, and offering sacrifices in the fire, as prescribed in the scriptures. The rites, as they are not an end in themselves, nor are fruitive action, culture of knowledge, or perfection in mystic powers ends in themselves. They are all means to attain to the highest stage of Swarup or render constitutional transcendental service to the Lord. Each and every living being has his individual position in one of the above mentioned 5 different kinds of reciprocating means with the Lord, and in one's pure spiritual form of Swarup, the relation becomes manifest without mundane affinity. The kissing of the Lord, either by his wives or his young girlfriends who aspire to have the Lord as their fiance, is not of any mundane perverted quality. Had such things been mundane or liberated, so like Sukhdev would not have taken the trouble to raise them, nor would Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all have been inclined to participate in those subjects after renouncing worldly life. The stage is earned after many lives of penance. All right, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ओम ज्ञानदिमनन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जलशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः नमो ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिधि नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वतीदेवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशधारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. All right, so let us continue from yesterday's class, and I don't think we'll have to go through the go through yesterday's class briefly, because it was just yesterday only. So we'll continue with the explanation on Parakiya Rasa, and Srila Prabhupada very wonderfully shares that if Parakiya Rasa was immoral or illicit, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would have definitely not heard about it or worshipped this Parakiya Rasa. And in fact, not just worshipping, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has declared that as the highest form of worship towards Lord Krishna. So that way, the renunciants like Sukdev Goswami, Bhishma Pitama, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then of course when the Rasla happened, all the demigods also arrived there. Shiva also wanted to participate, Lakshmi also wanted to participate, but they could not, right? So if it was immoral, illicit, then how could there have been a chance of all these great exalted personalities? Some of them are Naishtik Brahmacharis, some of them are renunciants, some of them are probably sannyasis, some of them are like demigods. So how could they appreciate and would like to participate in the pastimes? So that is not possible, right? So this thing is also clear from the purport of Srila Prabhupada. So now I will share the commentary of Srila Vishwanath Thakur on verse number 10:29:9. So would like to share on the screen also. We'll just go through the verse. Will not go through the purport, okay? And then I will read the commentary of Vishwanath Thakur. Okay. One second. Okay. So reading from 10:29:9. Antargriha gata kaschid gopya labdha vinirgama Krishnam tad bhavana yukta tadyur milita lochana. So only the translation. Some of the gopis, however, could not manage to get out of their homes or houses, and instead they remained home with eyes closed, meditating upon him in pure love. So this is the okay. Let me share the context. So basically, this is the period of Ras Lila. As you know, that 10th canto, 29th chapter, it begins with the Rasa Panchadhyay, and this is the first chapter of that. There are total 5 chapters of the Ras Lila, giving the background and then, of course, describing about the wonderful exchange of Krishna with the gopis in the Ras Lila. So in this 9th verse, it is mentioned that some of the gopis, they could not manage to get out their houses, and instead they remained in the home because they were actually not allowed by their husbands, right? But yesterday we also read a purport by Srila Vishwanath Thakur saying that the Yogmaya arranged. So previous to this verse number 8, Vishwanath Thakur says that Yogmaya replicated their bodies. So the spiritual forms of the gopis, they went to the Ras Lila, and the material forms, they were held back by their husbands. Okay, so there is no problem in terms of any type of inconsistency or immoral activity in this. Okay, so let's continue with Srila Vishwanath Thakur commentary on this verse. Very brilliant commentary, and I think many devotees. It's also not so difficult to understand, so you can just be attentive while I'm going through the commentary. Okay, so Srila Rupa Goswami describes in his Ujjwal Nilamani that there are 2 categories of gopis: the eternally perfect, Nitya Siddhas, and those who have become perfect by practicing Bhakti Yoga, Sadhana Siddhas. The Sadhana Siddhas are of 2 categories: those who belong to special groups and those who do not belong to special group. There are 2 classes of the gopis belonging to special groups, namely the Shruti-charis, who come from the group of the personified Vedas, and the Rishi-charis, who come from the group of sages who saw Lord Ramchandra in the Dandakaranya forest. So there is Shruti-chari gopis. If you remember the 87th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam of the 10th canto, and of course that also is given by Srila Prabhupada in his Krishna book. So that is called as prayers by the personified Vedas. So Vedas are also personalities, and they also get attracted to Krishna's Ras Lila and the mood of the gopis, and that's why they desire to attain the mood of the gopis in their next life. So they also prayed, and they, because of their sadhana, they attained that position in the next life. They took birth from the womb of gopis and they became gopis. Okay, so these are the Shruti-chari gopis. The Shrutis, the Vedas, they also are personalities. And next is the sages at Dandakaranya forest. So during Ramchandra's time, sages got attracted Lord Ram, and then they remembered their worship of Gopal, and that's how they desired to become gopis in the next birth. So Lord Ram actually fulfilled that desire. So that we'll see now. Okay, so this same fourfold categorization of the gopis is given in the Padma Purana. It is understood that some of the gopis are personified Vedic literatures, while others are reborn sages, daughters of cowards or demigod maidens. But by no means, my dear king, are any of them ordinary humans. Here we are informed that although the gopis appear to be human coward girls, they actually were not. Thus, the contention that they are mortals is refuted. The daughters of cowards, referred to here as Gopakanyas, must be eternally perfect, since we never hear of them having executed any sadhana. Their apparent sadhana of worshipping goddess Katyayani in the role of gopis merely manifests their manner of playing like human beings. The Bhagavatam narrates the account of this worship only to show how they had fully taken on the role of coward girls. Yeah, so these different category of gopis, they are basically some of them are Nitya Siddha, some are eternally perfect Nitya Siddha, some are Sadhana Siddha. Now, Nitya Siddha means they are belonging to the spiritual world and they just descend from the spiritual world. And that's why when they are praying to Katyayani to give a benediction so that Krishna will become our husband, so that is all a drama. It's all a play. Okay, they are just enhancing the pastimes of the Lord in the material world. Um, yeah. Okay. Other thing is that when the Lord is descending in the material world, then the demigods also they also descend along with the Lord. So basically, the demigods they are actually vibhutis of the Lord, and so the amshas of the portion of the Lord they actually enter the bodies of the demigods, and that's why the demigoddesses they are actually expansions of the gopis of Vrindavan who are eternally liberated, Nitya Siddha. So when Krishna is coming along with this paraphernalia from the spiritual world, he comes to the material world. Along with Krishna, Radharani comes, Lalita, Vishaka, Manjaris, they all come, descend. Sridama, Subal, Arjun, Saka, all of these eternal associates of Lord, they come to the material world. And because the demigods, they also would like to assist, they would like to serve in the pastimes of the Lord. So the amshas of these original personalities of the Nitya Siddhas enter the body of the demigods and the demigoddesses. That's why it is said that the demigoddesses also want to follow the mood of the gopis, footsteps of the gopis, and they too would like to become gopis. Okay, so now what does it mean that the amsha of Krishna or the associates enter the bodies? So basically, these demigods they are all jivas. They are jiv tattva. They are category of jiv tattva. Krishna is associates. They belong to the category of Ishwar tattva and Shakti tattva, and some are jiv tattvas also. But when it is mentioned that amsha, it means that they are actually empowered by the Lord. Okay, the jiva is empowered by the Lord to a good extent, and that's why they are called amshas. So now you also see this one thing that the Bhagavatam describes about the past life of Nand Maharaj and Yashoda Maiya, right? Now the question is that how can they have a previous life because they are eternal associates of the Lord. They are eternally in the spiritual world and they do not have any karma because you will see that okay after in the third lifetime they became Nanda and Yashoda. Or originally they were Drona and Dhara. Okay, and before that they were Prishni and Sutap, I think. So Vasudev Devki also the same thing. They are so when it is said that Drona and Dhara became Nanda and Yashoda, it basically means that the Nanda and Yashoda eternal associates of Krishna, when they descend to the material world, their expansions before Krishna will arrive, their expansions, their amshas will actually will become Drona and Dhara in the material world. So there are two possibilities. One is that these are two different personalities, Nanda, Yashoda. They are eternally the parents of Krishna, and then there is Drona and Dhara. Now they are. It is mentioned that they are amshas of the original associates. So that means that the portion of their bodies expand and they again merge back when the pastime is over, when the entire pastime is over. So it is when it is said that Drona and Dhara they were performing austerities, they pleased Brahma, and then Brahma gave the benediction that okay, you will become the father and mother of Krishna. So what that means, they are already a portion of Nanda and Yashoda in the material world, performing some lila. And when Nanda and Yashoda descend into the material world, they will again merge back in their bodies. So it is like, for example, one ray of my body will become Drona and Dhara, and that ray again will merge in my body when I descend in the material world, and when Krishna's pastimes are concluded, when I go back to the spiritual world, the portions, then Drona and Dhara will merge back into my body and will go back to the spiritual world, like that. So this is one possibility. Otherwise, the second possibility is that there are two different personalities altogether. Now, Nanda and Yashoda and Drondara can be separate jivas altogether. So when it is said that Drona is the Amsha of Nanda, then what happens? There is empowerment of Nand Maharaj in the body of Drona, and Drona is a jiva. He's a separate jiva from Nanda. When Nanda and Yashoda, they will come back, they come to the descent to the material world. Drona will merge in the body of Nanda for the timing. So let's not take example of Nanda and Yashoda because they are the Amshas. But let's take example of Bhishma Pitama. Now, Bhishma Pitama, according to the Mahabharata and other Shastra, he was a Vasu in the previous life. So because of his offense to one's age, he was cursed and he had to live longer. So now there is eternal Bhishma Pitama, the eternal associate of Krishna descending from Goloka, and the Vasu who became Bhishma Pitama in the next life. So what happens when Bhishma Pitama descends from the spiritual world? This Vasu enters in the body of Bhishma Pitama, and then when the pastimes of Krishna are over, when Bhishma Pitama leaves the body, or the real original eternal associate of Bhishma Pitama separates from the Vasu, the jiva that is merged in the body of Bhishma Pitama, so that Vasu, if he has performed pure bhakti, if he develops pure bhakti for the Lord, he goes back to Godhead. Otherwise, that Vasu goes back to the abode of Swarga, from where he came. Okay, so after giving up, so similar, so there are many examples like this. That a personality has got multiple, one particular jiva has got multiple personality in his body, and that you see constantly throughout Gaur Leela. Like for example, Ramandarai, Swarup Damodar Goswami. So Ramandarai is a combination of multiple personalities. Vishaka Sakhi, Arjuniya Gopi, Arjun Sakha of Krishna in Golok, Arjun of the Mahabharata. So these are all personalities who are merged in the body of Ramandarai. Okay, so this is how we understand. So I just wanted to give you some synopsis of exactly what happens when Krishna descends, because now we are talking about the sadhana siddha gopis and the nitya siddha gopis. So you need to understand who are the sadhana siddha gopis. Okay. All right. So that the Gop Kanyas Gopis are actually Nitya Siddhas, eternally perfect devotees of the Lord, is established by the statement of Brahma Samhita, Anand Chinmaya Rasa Prati Bhavita, which proves that the Gopis are Shri Krishna's spiritual pleasure potency. Similarly, we have the words of the Gautamiya Tantra, Ladini Ya Mahashakti. Further corroboration of their eternal perfection is that these Gopis, being co-eternal with their beloved Lord Krishna, are mentioned along with him in the 18-syllable Krishna mantra, the 10-syllable mantra, and others. So see, another a very striking evidence is there in the Gautamiya Tantra. Now, some of us have been initiated into the Diksha mantra. We have got the Gayatri or the Diksha mantras. So we'll see that there are 18-syllable Diksha mantra that we have. Then we have 10-syllable. Then we have the Kam Gayatri, and these talk about the gopis of the Lord. So these gopis' names are already there in the Shastra, which means that eternally they are there, because these mantras are eternal. It's not that they have manifested some point of time. So what does it mean? So the point is that these gopis have to be of eternal origin. They cannot be created at a certain point of time. Okay. Okay. Similarly, okay. Moreover, the worship of these mantras and also the Shrutis that present them has been in existence since time immemorial. So this we already know. The Dev Kanyas, the daughters of the demigods, who are mentioned in the verse beginning Sambhavas for Amarashriya, are explained in Ujjwal Lilamadi as partial expansions of the Nitya Siddha gopis. This is what I have explained to you, that the demigods are partial expansions of the Nitya Siddha gopis. That the Shrutichari gopis, the personified Vedas, are sadhana siddh is understood from the following words of theirs quoted in the Brihad Vamana Purana. So I will skip the Sanskrit. Since we have seen your face, which possesses the beauty of millions of cupids, our minds have become lusty after you, like those of young girls, and we have forgotten all other allurements. We have developed the desire to act towards you, as do the gopis who dwell on your transcendental planet, and who manifest the nature of Cupid by worshipping you with the idea that you are their paramour. So this is the Shrutichari gopis, the Vedas, they are praying to the Lord that we would also like to have lusty desires the same way as the gopis have for you. So this is from the Brihad Vaman Purana. Okay, the Rishichari gopis are also sadhana siddh, as stated in the Ujjwal Nilamani. Previously, they were Maharishis living in the Dandakarina forest. We find evidence of this in the Padma Puran, Uttarakhand. And this verse says that upon seeing Lord Ramchandra, the sages in the Dandaka forest desired to enjoy Lord Krishna. In other words, the sight of Lord Ram's sweet beauty reminded them of Lord Hari Gopal, of their personal object of worship, and then they wanted to enjoy with him. But out of embarrassment, they did not act on that desire. Whereupon Lord Sri Ram, who's like a desire tree, gave his mercy to them, even though they had not voiced their request. Thus their desire was fulfilled, as stated by the words beginning Te Sarve. By means of their lusty attraction, they became freed from the ocean of material existence, and coincidentally, they got the association of Hari in conjugal love. So this is how they became the gopis in the next life, by the mercy, special mercy of Lord Ram, the sages of Dandakaranya. See, now these are some just few examples, but actually, if you see, 16 billion gopis, they participated in Ras Lila. There, one at some in scripture it is mentioned like that. Not just 16,000 gopis or a lakh of gopis, but 16 billion gopis it is mentioned. So now you can just imagine 16 billion is not even the population. Like I think the total world population is 8 billion. So from that point of view, also we can understand that Vraj is 84 crores. It is 84 crores, right? So how is it 168 miles basically? So how can it fit 16 billion people? By the Achintya Shakti of the Lord, Vraj can actually expand itself into infinite universes, because it is also mentioned that in one corner of Vrindavan lies unlimited universes, right? Okay, so this is by all accomplished by Krishna's Achintya Shakti. Okay. Now, in the present verse of the Bhagavatam, we understand that it was the gopis who had children who were kept forcibly at home. This fact is clear from the verses yet to come, which is 10:29:20, 10:29:32, and 10:31:16. Okay, so now see, there were different categories of gopis. Some gopis, they were close to perfection, and they had got association of the Nitya Siddha gopis. They got trained, they got their association, and they perfected their lives. So that's how they were, without any hindrances, they were able to leave their husband, family, everyone, and they were able to go and participate in the Ras Leela. Whereas the gopis who were obstructed by their husband, they are the ones who had children. And now, who are these gopis? They are sadhana siddh, but then they are not completely perfect. There is some tinge of material contamination remaining in their hearts. And if you remember yesterday, I mentioned to you about there are two forms of the gopis, when they are enacting this pastime. One is they have this material form, basically, which is represented by the material contamination they have, a small tinge of material contamination, but they ultimately they have spiritual forms, spiritual body. So when one attains the stage of bhav or prem, then they attain two bodies, because you still have your sadhaka body, and then you also realize your vastu siddhi, which means the eternal form that you have with Krishna in the spiritual world. So these gopis, they took birth in the form of gopis, but they had material body also, and that material body is their material contamination. Okay, so the physical body they had was of two parts. One was material and one was spiritual. So what happened, that we'll see now. So in its comments on the 10th canto, Sri Kavi Karnapur Goswami states that those gopis who had children were prevented from going to meet Krishna, as seen from later verses. such as these. Krishna said, your mothers, fathers, sons, brothers, and husbands are searching for you. When they meet Krishna, then Krishna is telling to them about, mother, fathers, children. The gopis replied, but you have you have advised us that proper religious duty for a woman is to faithfully serve their husband, children, and other relatives. Giving up husbands and sons, we have come to you. Without trying to repeat all his thoughts on this verse, we'll give the gist of this purport. Okay, so now what is the gist? Upon seeing the sweetness of Lord Ram, the sages who were worshippers of Lord Gopal immediately became elevated to the mature platform of spontaneous devotion, automatically reaching the stages of Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, and Bhav, firm faith, attraction, attachment, and ecstatic devotion. However, they had not yet attained perfection and become completely freed of material contamination. So now we know that there are 9 stages of devotion, right? And we start with Shraddha, and then Shraddha, Sadhu Sang, Bhajana Kriya. We do bhajan under guidance of Guru Sadhu Shastra, and then Anartha Nivritti starts happening. And ultimately, we reach the stage of Bhav, which is one stage below perfection. Okay, so these stages, because of special mercy of Lord Ram, immediately they reach the stage of Bhav, special mercy, you can say. So the stages, they didn't have to do a lot of sadhana, just by their mercy they attain the stage of Bhav. But still, Bhav also is actually a stage that has got some contamination because of some previous aparadh or some kind of material attachment or something like that. So that contamination was still there in their hearts. However, they had not yet attained perfection. Okay. Now, nevertheless, Yogamaya Devi arranged for them to take birth in Gokul from the womb of gopis and become coward girls. By associating with Radha and other eternally perfect Nityasiddha gopis, some of these new gopis fully manifested Purva Rag, loving attraction for Krishna, as soon as they reach puberty. This kind of attraction develops even before one meets the beloved. When these new gopis attain the direct association of Krishna, all their remaining contamination became burned up and they achieved the advanced stage of prema, sneha, and so on. Okay, so now because of the mercy of Radharani and the gopis, they took the association, they served them, and they kind of imitated the bhav of the Nityasiddha gopis. Because of that, their advancement happened, and that's why they were able to join Krishna in the Ras line on the same day when Krishna played the flute. And because of that, they immediately came to the bhava of to the stage of prema sneha. Now, see, prema, of course, we know that that's the culmination of our sadhana. Sadhana bhakti culminates into bhava bhakti, and then bhava bhakti culminates in prem bhakti. So now, but prema is just like a basic love of Godhead. If you want to become Krishna's associate in Braj, then you have to refine that love. And for that, you must take shelter of the Brajvasis. There is no other option. So when you learn how to love the Lord in their footsteps, then the love is much more refined. It gradually keeps on refining. So after prema, there is a stage of prema, sneha, man, pranaya, rag, anurag, bhav, mahabhav. And then Mahabhav has got Rudra Mahabhav, Adirudra Mahabhav, and then Adirudra Mahabhav has got Madanakya Mahabhav and Modanakya Mahabhav, which is the exclusive property of Srimati Radharani alone. Even Krishna does not possess that Mahabhav. That's why Krishna had to come in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Prema, Sneha, Man, Pranaya, Rag, Anurag, Bhav, Mahabhav, and then further divisions of Mahabhav. Okay? We'll not go to details into that, but this is just for your understanding. So even though they were in the company of their coward husbands, by the power of Yogamaya, the gopis remained unsullied by sexual contact with them. Rather, they were situated in purely spiritual bodies that Krishna enjoyed. On the night they heard the sound of Krishna's flute, their husband tried to stop them. But by the merciful assistance of Yogamaya, the sadhana siddha gopis were able to go forth to their beloved together with the Nitya Siddha gopis. Other gopis, however, because of not getting the good fortune of associating with Radha and other Nitya Siddha gopis, had not achieved the stage of prem, and so their contamination was not completely burned away. They enjoyed intimately with their coward husbands and gave birth to children. But a short time later, even these gopis developed their Purva Rag by hankering intensely for the intimate physical association of Krishna. hankering they acquired by the associating with the advanced gopis. Becoming worthy recipients of the mercy of the perfected gopis, they assume spiritual bodies fit to be enjoyed by Krishna. When Yogmaya failed to help them overcome their husbands' attempts to keep them from going out, they felt themselves cast into the worst calamity. Viewing their husbands, brothers, and fathers and other family members as enemies, they came close to dying. Just as other women might remember their mothers or other relatives at the time of death, these gopis remembered the sole friend of their very life, Krishna, as stated in the present verse of the Bhagavatam, beginning with word antar. Okay. So, as I was sharing earlier, that some gopis, because of the material contamination, could not participate in the Ras Lila when Krishna played the flute in the night, Shardiya Ras. So they that particular night, the first night they could not go. But then, because of not going and feeling a lot of guilt, and what they did is they repented and they intensified their remembrance on Krishna. And because of that intense remembrance and attachment towards Krishna, whatever impurities they had, whatever contamination they had, that all got destroyed. So now they were originally in their pure spiritual forms. So this happened later. Okay, when um, so this happened for the next night of the Ras Leela dance. So Krishna does not have just one Ras Leela; he will have multiple Ras Leelas in different places. And next time when they were freed from this contamination, then they were able to associate with Krishna. And of course, in that period, they took association shelter of the Nitya Siddha gopis like Radharani, Lalita, Vishaka, Manjari, Rupa Manjari, like that. So it is implied that those gopis were not able to exit because they were held back by their husbands, were standing before them with sticks in their hands, holding them. Although these gopis were perpetually absorbed in love for Krishna, at that particular time they meditated upon him and cried out within, Alas, alas, O only friend of our life, O ocean of artistic skills within Vrindavan forest, please let us become your girlfriends in some future life, because at this time we cannot see your lotus face with our eyes. So be it, we shall look upon you with our minds. Lamenting in this way, the gopis shut their eyes and meditated deeply upon Shri Krishna. So when the Bhagavatam verse talks about that they gave up their bodies, what it means is they gave up their material contamination and they gave up their material bodies, but they still had the spiritual bodies. Now, it is not possible in Krishna's pastime that death can occur to any devotee, especially when Krishna is present in physically in home of Vrindavan, because that will create a lot of rasavas, like a lot of I mean it is not favorable to his pastime, so that cannot happen. So that's why the gopis did not leave their bodies as such. They did not die as such, okay, but they gave up their material contamination like that. So now we'll go to verse number 10 to 11. So this is the commentary on verse number 9. We'll now go to verse number 10 to 11 of the same chapter. Okay. दुःसह प्रेष्टवीरः तीव्रताप धृताशुभा ध्यान प्राप्ता च्युतश्ल अश्लेष निवृत्त्या क्षीणमङ्गला तम् एव परमात्मानं जार बुद्ध्यापि सङ्गता जहुर्गुणमयं देहं सद्य प्रक्षीणबन्धना. So for those gopis who could not go to see Krishna, intolerable separation from their beloved caused an intense agony that burned away all impious karma. By meditating upon him, they realized his embrace, and the ecstasy they then felt exhausted their material piety. Although Lord Krishna is the supreme soul, these girls simply thought of him as their male lover and associated with him in that intimate mood. Thus, their karmic bondage was nullified and they abandoned their gross material bodies. Right? So, see, here it is mentioned karmic bondage was nullified and they abandoned their gross material bodies. Although it seems that if one does not have a proper understanding, one will think that they died. But no, they abandoned their other body, which is material. Okay. So now let's go to the commentary of Vishwanath Thakur. So in order to hide the intimate attainment of the gopis from the gross materialist, Sukdev Goswami presents an external meaning in this verse, while at the same time he reveals the internal meaning to the confidential devotees well versed in the scientific conclusions of devotion. So see, Bhagavatam is compared to Mohini Avatar, and Mohini Avatar will, for the devotees, it will reveal us confidential secrets of the particular pastime. But for the demons, it will create a lot of illusion. The way Mohini also created illusion for the asuras, and somehow she gave the nectar to the finally to the demigods, right? So the Srimad Bhagavatam does the same thing. So Sukdev Goswami also is presenting like that. From this verse, the materialist can understand that Krishna gave the gopis liberation. All inauspicious things were removed from the gopis' hearts by enduring the suffering of intense separation from Krishna, because they could not participate in the Ras Lila at that particular day. That's why that intense separation, they got that feeling of separation, and that separation burned their material contamination. So, and all their auspicious karmic reactions, Shina Mangala, were removed by their blissfully embracing Krishna in meditation. So they started meditating on Krishna because of separation, and Krishna appeared to them in the meditation, and they all embraced Krishna in the meditation. So see how, what is the character and nature of Krishna. Even though they were not able to externally meet Krishna, but because of their intense meditation, intense hankering, Krishna did manifest to them, and he embraced them within. So we should always wait for the right time, and we should. So the reason the Lord is doing all these things is to increase our hankering for meeting, for seeing Him, for meeting Him, for serving Him, increasing our greed, so that we can come to the very advanced stages of bhakti. So similar thing also happened with Bharat Maharaj, Chitraketu Maharaj, and Indradu Maharaj. So they also wanted special type of intensity of love. That's why they had taken multiple births. So although of course it is mentioned that he got attracted to a deer. So these are all external. Actually, he's a liberated devotee. He's a eternal associate. Bharat Maharaj, Chitraketu Maharaj. They just wanted to intensify their bhakti for the Lord. That's why they took multiple births. Okay, so devotees also, if they like some, many times we want that we should go back to God in this life. But if you go back to God in this life with a less intensity of love, then would you be okay with that? So generally the devotees, they would not want anything less than what is their desire, right? So if you want that kind of desire intensity, then you can also wait for a couple of lifetimes. So this is something which is very encouraging. Okay. Having thus destroyed all their prarabdha karmas, manifest acts caused by previous deeds, the gopis thought of Krishna as their paramour, attained the Paramatma, and gave up their bodies. Krishna devotees, however, understand the verse from the following internal perspective. So external perspective we know. Now internal perspective. By meditation on Krishna, the gopis experienced both meeting and separation, unlimited happiness and distress, and at last attained their desire. The intense pain caused by intolerable separation from Krishna removed all inauspicious things from within the gopis. Seeing the intense agony the gopis endured due to separation from Krishna, thousands of inauspicious things, even as fearsome as the subterranean fires of millions of universes or the powerful Kalakut poison swallowed by Lord Shiva, gave up their identity as tortuous elements being defeated by the pain experienced by the gopis and began to tremble. So this was compared to, like, if you burn the entire universes, million of universes, that much pain you can experience like that. When the gopis meditated on Krishna, he manifested personally before them. Now, endowed with the appropriate identity and mood, the gopis experienced infinite bliss by embracing the astonishing transcendental body of Achyut, which was full of transcendental love for them. That joy made all their good fortune, both material and spiritual, seem insignificant. In other words, seeing the extreme bliss generated by the gopis, generated in the gopis by embracing Krishna through meditation, all the sensual pleasures found in millions of universes, and even the supersensory pleasure of spiritual bliss, Brahmananda. So we're talking about Brahmananda. We're not talking about the bliss experienced by loving Krishna. This is the bliss of Brahmananda. So that became withered, inferior, and insignificant. To say that because sin and piety can only be destroyed by experiencing pain and pleasure, the gopis, pap and punya were destroyed by the distress and joy arising from separation union with Krishna is not acceptable to the Vaishnavas. Because separation from Krishna is not caused by sin and meeting with Krishna is not caused by piety. Thus, the first meaning of the verse is rejected. So, according to the authorities, the destruction of karmic reactions occurs during the state of bhajan, when a devotee reaches the level of anartha nivriti. So, at the level of anartha nivriti itself, all the karmic reactions are all destroyed, prarabdha karmas. Okay, so this is something that we have to note very carefully. Now, the gopis, what stage of devotion they are at? They are not at anartha nivriti. They are at the stage of prema, bhav prema. Anartha nivriti much below stage, right? So that's for sadhakas like us. We are in the, even at, once you cross anartha nivriti, your prarabdha karmas are destroyed. Then what to speak of? So there is no question of sin or piety for those gopis. So the word Paramatma Nam here means he who possesses the highest prem, Parama. So Paramatmanam actually can refer to the Parama level of Prema. The gopis directly achieved the supreme goal of Prem by thinking of Krishna as their illicit lover. The gopis realized Krishna in an even fuller sense than did Rukmini and his other queens, who thought of him most respectfully as their husband. An unpredictable excellence of prema is manifest by thinking of Krishna as a paramour instead of a husband. This is shown in the words of Uddhav. Though the gopis abandon their families and the path of proper conduct, which is very difficult to do so, they worship Krishna who is sought by the Vedas. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10 Canto 47 chapter, 61 verse, when Uddhav visited the Vrajvasis. In Krishna's pastimes on earth, he often turns the most lowly things into the most elevated thing. As Bhishma stated, Krishna's pastime of acting as Arjun's chariot driver was even more elevated than pastimes in which he enacted as mighty king of kings. So I concentrate upon the chariot driver of Arjun, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, and who very carefully protected Arjun's chariot by all means. This is Bhishma Pitama glorifying Krishna in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto 9 chapter, verse number 39. So, according to Bhishma Pitama, so this is how Vishwanath Thakur reveals that the pastime of acting as Krishna's chariot is even more elevated than acting as a mighty king. Similarly, in Krishna's Vraj Lila, we see that the normally inferior Shringar Ras, conjugal love, becomes better than the normally superior mood of Shantaras. And in Shringar Ras, the socially unacceptable attitude of loving a paramour becomes superior to the loving exchange between legitimate spouses. In the same way, Krishna's decorations of lowly gunja berry necklaces, red oxide paste, and peacock feathers are superior to the most valuable jeweled ornaments. Right? So basically, the point is everything in the material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. This is what Krishna wanted to prove. And through the pastime of Raslila and having a relationship with the gopis as a paramour, Krishna established all these principles. That everything is totally reversed in the spiritual world, and what is lowly in the material world becomes totally highly elevated in the spiritual world. Okay, so the word Sangata, directly meaning Krishna, implies that some of these gopis who were restrained by their husbands or fathers eventually escaped and met Krishna on the night of the Rasa dance, or that some of them were able to meet Krishna on another night. It may be objected, however, that it is not proper for the Supreme Lord to sport with women whose bodies have already been enjoyed by other men. This objection is replied to by the words beginning Jahu, give up. The word Deham, body, is used here in the singular form to indicate unity of category, even though the gopis are many. Some authorities say that by the power of Yogamaya, the gopis' bodies disappeared in a way no one noticed. Others say the body referred to in this context is the inferior body composed of the modes of material nature. Thus, by the prominence of the adjective Guna Mayam, it is understood that before the gopis heard the sound of Krishna's flute, their bodies had been twofold, material and spiritual. And upon hearing the flute, they gave up the material bodies which their husbands had enjoyed. Right? So this is clear. In this regard, the following should be considered. When devotees practice devotional service, so this is also a very important point, please pay attention to this. When devotees practice devotional service under the shelter of bona fide spiritual master, they engage their ears, other senses in acts of pure devotion by hearing and chanting about Krishna, remembering him, offering obeisances, and personally serving his deity form. Thus, the devotees make the Lord's transcendental qualities the object of their senses, as stated by the Lord himself. Nirguno mad apashraya. The devotees who take shelter of Krishna transcend the modes of material nature. Yet sometimes the devotees may take as their sense objects mundane sounds and tastes, and that is material. Thus, a devotee's body can have two aspects, transcendental and material. According to one's level of devotional service, to that degree, the transcendental aspects of one's body become prominent and the material aspects diminish. This transformation is described in the following verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is 11th canto, 2nd chapter, verse number 42. With each bite of food that a person takes, three effects occur simultaneously. He obtains satisfaction, nourishment, and cessation of hunger. So similarly, surrendered souls engaged in bhajan simultaneously they experience three effects: awakening of bhakti aiming at prema, direct manifestation of the Lord's beloved form, and detachment from the material objects. Thus, those who eat only a little food will derive a little satisfaction, a little nourishment, and slight relief for hunger. Similarly, those who perform only a little bit of hearing and chanting about Krishna will attain a little bhakti, some realization of Lord, and a little detachment. However, when one achieves unalloyed Krishna prem, the material portions of the body they disappear, and the body becomes completely spiritualized. Nonetheless, so as not to disturb the false opinions of atheists and to protect the confidentiality of devotional service, Sri Krishna usually has his illusory energy exhibit the demise of the Gruha's body. An example of this is the disappearance of the Yadavas during the Musa lila. Right? Uh, so now very encouraging and very interesting comment by Srila Vishwanath Thakur. He says that devotees also kind of develop two bodies simultaneously. One is the body which is connected to the transcendental devotional activities, and that gradually keeps on refining our spiritual body within, and the same time the material sound vibration, the more we advance, the more we will reduce our material hearing and gossiping and all, and that will destroy our material body to a great extent. And the more we talk about Krishna and the spiritual subject matter, the more our spiritual body will keep on growing, developing, you can say developing, right? So that way, devotee also kind of develops two bodies together. Of course, at the stage of that is actually manifested at the stage of bhava and prema. You cannot see that in the stages from Shraddha to Asakti like that. Okay. And of course, so I think a couple of years back, or I have already described in detail the disappearance of Krishna and the Yadu dynasty, and how Krishna left material body in the material world. At the same time, in the spiritual body, he went back. But then there are a lot of details to that. So if you would like to know how Krishna exactly, this is a very extremely interesting pastime. Ultimately, it was all illusory created for the materialistic or the atheistic people. But for the devotees, our acharyas, they have given excellent commentary, and they have. So you can also refer to these videos that we have already discussed earlier. So sometimes, however, to proclaim the superiority of bhakti, there is no death, as in the case of a devotee like Dhruv Maharaj, who Krishna allowed to go to the spiritual world in the self-same body. So this is also another important point. Now, Dhruv Maharaj, he had some material attraction and contamination. He wanted to achieve Brahma's abode. So basically, his desire was not even pure devotional service, but somehow because of Narad Muni's association, he got that benefit advantage. And then it is said that he went back to Godhead in the same spiritual body, right? So similarly, the Pandavas also, Draupadi also, they all went back to Godhead in the self-same spiritual bodies. Similarly, of course, Nand Maharaj, Yashoda Maya, eternal associates, they go back in the self-same spiritual bodies. So sometimes, however, okay. We can cite evidence for this point from the 25th chapter of the 11th canto, text number 32. By practicing Bhakti Yoga, a devotee conquers over the gunas in the heart, and being my Nirgun Bhakta, he attains a form or mood like mine. So this is a praman from Srimad Bhagavatam, that one can go back, one body can become spiritualized and he can go back in the same body. So Kapila Dev also speaks of the transcendental nature of bhakti. As bhakti is transcendental, the ingredients of worship such as flower, incense, ghee also become transcendental by the touch of the limbs of bhakti. Thus, the defeat and destruction of that which is composed of the modes of material nature can be brought about only by the process of devotional service. The word dushta shubha can also mean by the pain caused by intolerable separation from Krishna, the gopis cast off their gunamaya deham, inauspicious material bodies. By the ecstasy the gopis felt by embracing Krishna in meditation, their auspicious spiritual bodies, far from being destroyed, simply increased and became more prominent because of bliss. Yogmaya helped the gopis get free from the restraints of their husband and from the bondage of ignorance because all their karma was completely destroyed. However, we should not make the mistake of thinking that the gopis died. As the Lord himself states, all those auspicious gopis who were locked in their houses by their husbands and could not attain the Ras Lila on the full moon night of autumn attained me by remembering my potent pastimes. By using the word Kalyan here in this verse, Krishna implies even though these gopis wanted to give up their bodies because of their husbands' prohibitions and the torment of separation from me, for them to die at the very beginning of the most auspicious festival of the Rasa dance would have been displeasing to me and very inauspicious. A Kalyanya. Therefore, they did not die. Rather, they became fortunate. Kalyanaha. Okay, so see here, it is also stated very clearly there is no possibility of dying because Raslila is the most worshipable, most exalted form of loving relation with Lord. So it is the most auspicious pastime, and of course, there should be no inauspicious thing that can happen at the beginning of this such most auspicious festival. More evidence that the gopis who were prevented from going to see Krishna did not physically die is provided by Sukdev Goswami's provided Sukdev Goswami later in the 10th canto, 47th chapter, verse number 38. Ta uchu uddhavam pritas tat sandesha gata smriti. Then the gopis replied to Uddhav, feeling satisfied because his message had reminded them of Krishna. The word ta here refers to those gopis restrained from the Ras Lila by their husbands, yet they remained alive, were now present speaking with Uddhav while Krishna was living in Mathura. In other words, the gopis gave up their material guna-may bodies without dying. So parched by the intense heat of separation, the gopis gave up the gunamay nature of their bodies and attained pure spiritual bodies, just like the bodies of such great devotees as Dhruv Maharaj. This is the meaning of the gopis giving up their bodies. Verse number 10 and several others in the Bhagavatam indicate that the gopis remained home without dying and only attained Krishna's association in meditation. Dhyana prapta achyuta aslesha. By meditation, the gopis obtained the embrace of Achyuta, Krishna, 10:29:10. So this is the present verse. So alabdha vinir gama, not obtaining any exit. Vraje asthita, remaining in the village of Vraj, which is 10:47:37. And ma apu mat virya chintaya, the gopis achieve me by meditation upon my valorous pastimes. 10:47:37 verse. However, here verse 11 says Sangata, the gopis got direct Krishna's association, whereas Bhagavatam 10:47:37 says Alabdha Rasa, the gopis did not attain the Rasa dance. Therefore, it should be understood that among the gopis who were locked in their houses were of two types. The following analogy illustrates the statuses of various gopis. By observing 7 or 8 ripe mangoes on a tree, a wise servant can ascertain that all the fruits on the tree are ripe. Then he will pick them also and bring them home, where in due course the sun rays and other agents will make them fine looking, fragrant and delicious, fit to be offered to the king for his enjoyment. When the time comes for the king to take his meal, a discriminating servant can choose those fruits ready to offer him. So from the appearance of the fruits, the servant can tell which are ripe in the middle, but still raw on the outside, and thus not yet fit for the king. After 2 or 3 days, the remaining fruits will become ripe, and then they too will be ready to be offered to the king. So similarly, among the Munichari gopis who took birth in Guru Gokul, those who had completely given up of their gunamai bodies and very early in life achieved purely spiritual bodies, who were able to remain untouched by any other man. Thus, Yogmaya allowed them to join the Nitya Siddhas and the other advanced gopis when they went to meet Krishna. Other Munichari gopis still retained some connection with the external material body, but even they, after experiencing the pain of separation from Krishna, gave up their conception of their material gunamai bodies and assumed perfectly transcendental bodies, purified of all taint of contact with other men. On the night of the Rasa dance, Yogamaya sent some of these gopis out behind those who had already gone out. Others who saw Yogamaya, who Yogamaya saw, still had some slight of amount of contamination. She kept back to further purify with the heat of separation, and then she sent them out on some other night. So after enjoying the pleasures of the Rasa dance and other pastimes with Krishna, the Munichari gopis who had participated went back to their homes when the night was over, as did the Nitya Siddha and other advanced gopis. Now Yogamaya protected these Munichari gopis from the material association of their husbands. In other words, these gopis became detached from their husbands, sons and daughters, and their love for Krishna increased more and more. Since these gopis were thoroughly immersed in the great ocean of love for Krishna, their bodies dried up so that they could not feed their infants. Becoming disinterested in raising their children, their family members thought they were possessed by ghosts. In conclusion, it is not unseemly that the gopis were previously in material association, joined in the Rasa dance. Some acharyas conclude that the gopis locked in their homes did not have children. According to them, whenever such words as apatya, children, are used in verses yet to come, these words refer to the children of co-wives, to adopted children, or to nephews and nieces. So this is the conclusion of the explanation given by Srila Vishwanath Thakur on 10 and 11 verse of the 10th canto of the 29th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. And with this, we also conclude our explanation on the decoding of Parakiya Rasa. So, extremely interesting, and with all pramans and everything. And this is how we understand. So there are two parts here. One is the aspect from the point of view of Gopi's side, which we have covered today. And the previous aspect, which we covered in the last two sessions, was basically who are these Gopas, who are these husbands of the wives, who are the husbands of the Gopis who participate in the Raslila. And then we also understood that these husbands, they are actually ultimately expansion of Yogamaya. They are all Krishna's expansion finally. So from both perspectives, there is no question of any form of immorality, and there's no illicit connection, or there's no fault in these kind of relationships. So Krishna just wants to enjoy, he wants to taste Parakiya Rasa, because that will intensify their prema. Okay, and that's why he preferred this kind of arrangement. So this is eternal, both in the material and in the spiritual world. So with this, we end our series on decoding Parakiya Rasa. Now I would like to ask if devotees, they have any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for going deep into the wonderful Ras Leela and the Parakiya Ras of the Gopis. Prabhuji, I've heard that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement and him having Sankirtan with the devotees can also be compared to the Ras dance. And what, how can we understand Parakiya Rasa in the Sankirtana movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you for your comments, and all glories to our Parampara Acharyas. So, yeah, that's right. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan is non-different from the Ras Leela. So when Mahaprabhu is performing his Sankirtan in the night time at Shiva's Thakur's house, So that is directly compared to the Raslila pastime. And any form of Sankirtan that we are doing together, because it's a congregation of devotees coming together and they are doing the Kirtan. So that is not different from the Raslila. Yeah, so see now, of course, now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the associates, they are coming in a sadhaka form. So, and they are all male bodies, they are not female bodies, right? So that's why we cannot say that it is any form of relationship with of that of male and female. But what is happening here is the bhav that they are experiencing, that is same. So the sentiment that they have taken, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took the form of he took the bow of Srimati Radharani. So basically, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is taking that experience of Madhurya Ras, and similarly, Nityananda, Balram, Sadashiv, or Lord Vishnu, Mahavishnu, they are all taking that Madhurya Ras, something which was not available to them earlier. Because of Mahaprabhu's magnanimity, Namo Mahavadana Krishna Prem Pradayate. But what type of Krishna Prem is that? That is not ordinary. That is the mood of the Vraj gopis. The Madhurya Ras that is experienced by the gopis, that is actually taken by all these associates. So they are experiencing, they are relishing that bhav in the sadhaka form and in the male bodies. Okay, so internally they are relishing that, which they could not access because, as we know, Lord Shiva wanted to enter the Raslila, but because he could not give up his male body, that's why he could not enter. He could not relish. Lakshmi could not relish that because of her Aishwarya Bhav. So all these devotees, they wanted to take advantage of that, and they wanted to, and Mahaprabhu fulfilled the desire of everyone like that.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. So Parakiya Bhav is only between male and for Krishna and a female gopi.
Yeah. So when we are talking about Parakiya Ras, so that's of course between male and female.
Right? But in a sense, Krishna is Purushottam, and then everybody else is Prakriti. So we can even see that the male body can have Madhurya, and is it possible to have Parakiya?
Yeah, of course. So see, all our original acharyas, most of them, they are manjaris in the spiritual world and gopis, right? So we can also aspire for the same mood and bhav. Internally, we can aspire for that, and when we attain perfection, we'll attain that particular form in the spiritual world. So we can have Madhurya Ras, and then of course in the Madhurya Ras also, like Vishwanath Thakur says, that if you worship Krishna only with Aishwarya Bhav, then you cannot attain Krishna in Braj. You become a queen in Dwarka. You become a Mahishi in Dwarka. But if you follow in the footsteps of the gopis, then you attain that position in the spiritual world. And of course, then you have two options. One is Fakiya, then you have Parkiya. So you may, if you aspire for that particular mood, and this is what we have discussed in the first session, where Bhaktivinoda Thakur, via the Jaiv Dharma, which is a novel, so he is conveying all these principles that, what does it mean to become a gopi, and what is the Parodabhiman. So you develop the mood and bhav that you are married to someone in Javat, which is near Barsana in Braj. You meditate on that. You try to cultivate that kind of sentiment that you are already married to someone else, and now you are worshipping Krishna in that Parakiya Bhu, the paramour relationship. So if you develop similar kind of mood, then you attain that kind of status. Of course, these things are not emphasized in ISKCON because ours is a Sankirtan movement where we emphasize on preaching. But internally, one may naturally develop these sentiments, or after serving the Guru, pleasing the Guru sufficiently, one will, by the mercy of Guru, one will realize all these things. So you may realize that you are a Sakha in the spiritual world, or maybe you are Krishna's, like Yashodamaya and Maharaj, you are also following the footsteps of, you have Vatsala Bhav for the Lord. So these things will all be revealed to us naturally. And if these things are not revealed to us now, it will come later, or it may come by the special mercy of Srila Prabhupada and our Gurujan. Okay, but the most important thing is Raganuga Bhakti, and we had a session on Raganuga Bhakti also, where we have covered these details, and where we have discussed that ultimately the most essential principle of Raganuga Bhakti is one pointed attention to pleasing Guru. If that is done, that is automatically having a similar mood as that of the Braj gopis. So all these things will come naturally.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Right.
Very nicely explained, and it looks like everybody has the opportunity to get this highest rasa. We just have to keep on going on with our sadhana. One question comes to mind is, you mentioned about Nitya Siddha, and then Nitya means eternal, and we have a term called Nitya Baddha also, the eternally, attached to the material. So, is there opportunity for Nitya Baddha to get the highest level?
Yes, yes. Yeah, of course. In fact, yesterday only, I think you were not there in the yesterday's class, but I explained significantly about why we are called Nitya Baddha and then why it is called Nitya Siddha. So I did explain about that, and yeah, of course, Nitya Baddha.
Listen to them.
We are all like fallen in Kali Yuga, and we definitely expect the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the representative of Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada and our Gurujan. So we can, so that's the specialty of Gaur Lila, that you, a most fallen Jeev in the material world, can attain the highest level of spiritual level, by in the shortest amount of time, and that is done. All these things is possible by Srila Prabhupada's mercy. Srila Prabhupada is extremely special for us, because he is the one who has taken Mahaprabhu's message to nook and corner of the world. So Mahaprabhu's desire was fulfilled to the greatest extent by Srila Prabhupada, and that's why Srila Prabhupada has the, you can say that he's got the maximum privilege of awarding his followers, the maximum benefit and mercy that he can bestow.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Appreciate all the wonderful details. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, all right. Any other devotees, question or comment?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much for explaining these most confidential and difficult sections of Bhagavatam. Prabhu, please correct me. Like, my understanding was, like, when reading 10th chapter, that the Rasa Leela and all these are all on spiritual platform. It is like the physical body of man or woman, all that conception is not there. It's just the pure love. And the rasas that are being exchanged in all these Ras Leelas, they have nothing to do with the physical body, man, woman. All these designations are not, it's just pure love, exchange of love between the gopis and Krishna, which is at very high level and not to be compared with what we see like in our mundane practices, love between a man and a woman and babies and bodies and all those things. So am I right, Prabhu? Or is that wrong understanding?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as we were discussing, we're going through the commentary of Vishwanath Thakur. So what he's saying is that the gopis, they have already reached the stage of the let's not talk about gopis, but let's talk about sadhakas. Sadhakas who have already reached the stage of bhava and prema. So they are the ones who take, okay. See, what happens is when you leave the body, you don't go like, if you have attained the stage of bhava and prema, you don't go directly to the spiritual world. So Prabhupada says, and our Acharya also explained that after attaining that stage, you take birth in the material world, in the universe where Krishna is about to perform his pastime. So now Krishna is not there in this. We know that Vrindavan is there, it's in UP, and Krishna is currently not present there. But because Krishna's Leelas are eternal in the material world also, so Krishna is currently performing his pastime in another universe. Okay. And what we are doing is, in one of the universes, Krishna will just appear. And if we perfect at this particular point of time, then we take birth in that particular universe where Krishna is about to appear, and we also appear along with Krishna. And we have attained the state of bhava and prem, and then further we are purified and intensified, our bhajan become intensified by the association of the Nitya Siddha gopis who are coming from the spiritual world along with Krishna. And then we are trained. So our intensity of prem also rises from prayer to sneha, man, pranaya, rag, anurag, to the extent of bhav, mahabhav, like that. Right? So these are all stages after bhav and prema. And that sense, yeah, of course, it is all spiritual. But the point is that if it is spiritual, why Krishna is demonstrating that in the material world? Because it is so easy to get very bewildered. If one does not have the right understanding, then any layman would not be able to appreciate Krishna's pastimes, because he is actually kind of, it seems that he's performing some adharmic activity. So that's why we need the eyes of our acharyas by which we can understand these things. Okay, and of course he wants to prove why he does in the material world these things. Vishwanath Thakur already gave the answer to that. He says that material things, these are lowly, these are the lowest, according to dharma. But when it comes to spirituality, Krishna wants to show that it becomes the highest in the spiritual realm. Okay, so how he is doing that, that is all explained by our acharyas like that. I hope.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranam, Prabhuji.
Yeah, in fact, yesterday, where we read a particular verse which says that Krishna is present in the heart of the gopis, and not just the gopis, but he is also present in the heart of the husband. So whether Krishna is embracing from within or whether he's embracing from without does not make any difference, right? So that simple concept also is not understood by many people most of the time. He is the Paramatma, so he owns everything. So definitely Krishna's exchanging with the devotees is on the spiritual platform. He's not seeing the material bodies and material conditioning of the devotees. He's enacting pastimes on the spiritual platform, because he's doing lila with the atma, the soul. Now the atma originally has a spiritual form. That is something which people do not understand, because they think that, okay, atma may be there, but most of the people, they think that atma merges with brahman. So there is, very spiritual, what are spiritual qualities and spiritual form and all. Most of the people, they do not believe that. That's why Mayavad Khandan is a very important concept that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu established, like that. So this is how we understand.
Yes, Prabhu, because in the 10th chapter, 10th canto, I mean, the state of gopis is described when they are in, like, around Krishna. Like, they just forget memory of their physical body. Like, they are just so lost. They are in different realm.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah. So,
one thing we also have to be careful, that we cannot say that it is so physical, the body they forget, that is there, but what they forget is their material bodies. Although the spiritual body is still there. See,
yes.
as I was discussing earlier, that how do you exchange Parakiya Rasa? Parakiya Rasa can only happen between male and female. So what we need to also establish is that Krishna has a transcendental spiritual male body, and the gopis, they have transcendental, Radharani has transcendental female body. Okay, although it may have a physically female form, but actually speaking, male and female, according to the spiritual context, it refers to someone who is enjoyer and someone who is enjoyed. And that's how we are all, one sense, we are all enjoyed by the Lord. That's why we are all female. But then some devotees in the spiritual world may have a body of a Sakha. So they are male bodies, right? So this also we have to make them understand that this is the concept that we have, that the Atma has a spiritual form in the spiritual world. It is just not limited to, okay, we are Prakriti, which means that we are female, we are enjoyed. But then as enjoyed also, we have a spiritual form, and that spiritual form is totally Satchidananda Vigraha. It is not material. So this is also important.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Dandavat pranam, Prabhu.
Okay. Any other devotees? Okay, nobody has a question or comment now? Okay, then we can stop here. And
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for this excellent class and deep knowledge of this topic. So thank you so much, Prabhuji. If nobody has any question or comment, we can end up the call here by paying obeisances to all the Vaishnavas. Vancha kalpatarushya kasanyavaivacha adhikana Nandakoti Vaishnava ki jai, Namaste
Jai.
Jai.
Rashmit Bhagavatam ki jai,
Ki jai.
Nidres Premarasa Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
All assembled devotees ki jai.
Jai. Hare
Thank you so
Krishna.
much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Thank you for
Hare
wonderful
Krishna.
class.
Hare Krishna.